Hi, I'm Renée. I covered the venue, the catering, the flowers, the photographer, even the honeymoon suite. Every single invoice for my sister's wedding had my name on it. And on the night of the rehearsal dinner, my mother raised her glass, looked right through me, and said, "None of this would be possible without family." She meant Amber. She always meant Amber. They printed programs with every name but mine. I gave my seat at the head table to a college friend Amber hadn't spoken to in 6 years. And when I tried to stand next to my own sister for the family portrait, my mother whispered, "Not now. Renée, today isn't about you." So I did the one thing none of them saw coming. I canceled the honeymoon before they ever made it to the airport. Ever wonder what it takes for a woman to pull the funding on her own sister's fairy tale? Let me tell you exactly how I got there. The wedding was set for the last weekend in October. A Saturday ceremony at a vineyard 2 hours outside of Charlotte. Amber had picked the venue herself. Scrolling through Pinterest boards during a long weekend at my apartment while I cooked dinner and refilled her wine, she'd gasped at the photos. Stone archways draped in white wisteria. Rolling hills behind the ceremony lawn. A rustic barn reception hall with chandeliers made of twisted iron. This is it. Renée, this is the one. I remember smiling because she looked so happy. That was March. By April, I'd wired the deposit, $22,000 to hold the date, the venue, and the preferred catering package. Amber had promised to split costs with me once her fiancé, Derek, got his year-end bonus. That bonus came and went without a single mention. I drove down from Raleigh on a Wednesday, 3 days before the ceremony. My car was packed with garment bags, the boxes of custom place cards I'd hand-addressed over 2 weekends, and a cooler full of Amber's favorite high-end sparkling water, because she'd texted me the night before saying the venue didn't carry it. When I pulled into the gravel lot behind the main house, the first thing I noticed was the banner strung across the porch railing. Welcome, Amber and Derek, a love story written in the stars. Below it, in smaller script, were the names of the bridal party. Amber, Derek, Mom, Aunt Carolyn, Jess, Priya, Mackenzie. No, Renée. I sat in the car for a full minute. Engine off. Hands still on the wheel. Then I grabbed the cooler and walked inside. My mother was arranging centerpieces in the reception barn. Wearing a linen blouse I'd bought her for Mother's Day. She looked up when I came in. And her expression was the kind you give a delivery driver brief. Transactional. Oh, good. You brought the water. Set it by the bar. No hug. No. How was the drive? I placed the cooler where she pointed and asked if I could see the seating chart. She waved toward a large board propped against the wall. I found my name after scanning 3 times. Table 14. Back corner. Near the kitchen entrance. Sandwiched between Derek's coworker's girlfriend and someone listed only as +1 TBD. My mother had seated herself. Amber, Derek, Derek's parents, Aunt Carolyn, and Jess, Amber's roommate, from college at the head table, 6 seats. I wasn't one of them. I thought I'd be at the main table. I said carefully. My mother didn't look up from the hydrangeas. She was trimming. There are only 6 chairs. Renée. We had to make choices. I'm her sister. And Jess has been like a sister to her since freshman year. She said it with a smile that made the sentence sound reasonable. Almost generous. As if she were doing me a favor by explaining. You'll have a wonderful time at table 14. The Hendersons are very funny. I didn't argue. I picked up a pair of scissors from the table. I started helping with the ribbons. And bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. That evening, the bridal party had a private dinner at a farm-to-table restaurant in town. I learned about it when Amber posted a photo to her story. 6 women in matching silk robes, clinking champagne flutes. The caption read, "My girls. My heart. Tomorrow, we make magic." My phone buzzed in my pocket. Not an invite. A Venmo request from Amber. $340 for bridal dinner. Your share of the gift basket. I'd paid for the robes. I'd paid for the champagne. And now I was paying for a dinner I wasn't invited to. I sent the money without replying. Then I walked to the vineyard's small pond behind the guest cottages and sat on a bench until the mosquitoes drove me inside. The morning of the rehearsal. I woke early and made coffee in the small kitchenette of my cottage, the one furthest from the main house. The one with the window that faced the parking lot instead of the hills. I'd asked for the room closest to Amber's suite in case she needed help getting ready. My mother had smiled and said, "We put you where you'd have the most privacy. You're always saying you need your space." I'd never once said that. At the rehearsal, I stood to the side while the wedding coordinator walked everyone through their positions. Amber's bridesmaids practiced their entrances. Derek's groomsmen joked about their cufflinks. My mother rehearsed her reading a passage from 1 Corinthians that she'd chosen herself. When the coordinator asked if anyone else had a role, I raised my hand slightly. "I'm doing a reading." 2. Amber asked me in the spring. The coordinator checked her clipboard. Flipped a page. Flipped another. "I don't have you listed." Amber glanced at me from the altar. Then looked at my mother. Something passed between them. A flicker. An understanding. "We actually cut that reading," Amber said. "The ceremony was running long." "I thought Mom told you." My mother was already rearranging the unity candles. She didn't turn around. "No one told me." I said, "Well?" Amber shrugged lightly. "Now you know. You can just enjoy the ceremony from your seat." The coordinator moved on. I stood in the same spot for another 10 seconds. Then walked to the back of the venue and pretended to check my phone. My hands were steady. My jaw was not. At the rehearsal dinner that night, my mother gave her toast. She stood at the head of the long wooden table. Candlelight, catching the tears she'd clearly been preparing all week. She talked about Amber's kindness, Amber's strength, how she'd watched this beautiful woman grow from a stubborn little girl into someone extraordinary. She thanked Derek for loving her daughter. She thanked Aunt Carolyn for flying in from Portland. She thanked Jess for being Amber's rock. She thanked the vineyard staff for the beautiful setup. She did not thank me. Not for the venue. Not for the flowers. Not for the $22,000 deposit that made this entire weekend exist. Not for the 3 years of payments I'd been quietly making on Amber's credit card balance so she could qualify for a joint account with Derek. Not for any of it. When she sat down, Amber hugged her. Everyone clapped. I clapped too. 2 beats slower than the rest. Derek's father leaned over during dessert and said, "You must be so proud. Your family really pulled this together." I nodded and took a sip of wine that burned going down. Later. Back in my cottage. I opened my banking app and scrolled. The numbers laid themselves out like a court transcript. Venue deposit $22. Ling ling ling. Catering final payment $14. Babé. Floral. Arrangement $3. Lambé. Photographer retainer $2. Woobay. Amber's dress alterations. Paid by me, because she said the seamstress didn't take her card $875. Honeymoon suite at a resort in Turks and Caicos. Booked under my account, because Amber said Derek's credit limit was too low $6. Soubet. Rehearsal dinner, wine. Added to my tab, after my mother told the restaurant to put it on my daughter's account, without specifying which daughter $1. eBay. I stopped scrolling at $51. Ling ling ling. I hadn't meant to keep a total. But there it was. I closed the app and opened my voicemails instead. The folder I never deleted. The one labeled Grandma. Her voice filled the dark cottage like warm water. The message was from 4 years ago. 2 weeks before she passed. Renée. Honey. I know they don't always see what you do. But I do. You're the one who holds it together. And that's a gift. But don't let it become a cage. Promise me, you'll know the difference between being needed and being used. Because from where I'm sitting, baby girl, they've been confusing the two for a long time. I listened to it twice. Then I set the phone on the nightstand, face down, and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally took me. The morning of the wedding, I ironed my dress, a burgundy A-line. I'd chosen carefully so it wouldn't clash with the bridal party's dusty rose. I did my own makeup in the small bathroom mirror. No ring light. No stylist. Just me, and a tube of mascara, and the steady hands of someone who'd been getting herself ready alone for a long time. When I walked over to Amber's suite to see if she needed anything, Jess opened the door halfway. Oh. We're doing a private bridal moment right now, Amber said. Just the girls. She gestured vaguely behind her, where I could hear laughter and a hairdryer. The photographer's flash popped. My mother's voice drifted out. Hold still. Baby. This is going to be the shot. I'm her sister, I said, for the second time in 2 days. Jess gave me a look that was almost sympathetic. I know. But she specifically said, just the bridal party for the getting ready photos. You understand. Right. I nodded, because I didn't trust what would come out otherwise. On my way back to my cottage, I passed one of the floral assistants carrying an arrangement toward the ceremony lawn. She smiled at me. Are you with the catering team? The coordinator said someone would come check the buffet setup. I stopped walking. No. I'm the sister of the bride. She blinked. Then apologized quickly. Something about all the names blending together. I told her it was fine. It wasn't. The ceremony was beautiful. I'll give them that. The afternoon light hit the stone archway at exactly the right angle. Amber looked stunning. Derek cried when he saw her. My mother dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief I'd monogrammed and given her the day before. The reading from Corinthians went perfectly. The vows were personal and moving. I watched from the 4th row, behind Derek's aunts and between 2 people I'd never met. When the photographer gathered everyone for the family portrait after the ceremony, I stepped forward naturally, instinctively, the way you do when you belong. My mother held up one hand. Let's do immediate family first. I am immediate family. I thought but didn't say. She arranged herself. Amber, Derek, and Derek's parents in front of the archway. Click. Then she added Aunt Carolyn. Click. Then Jess. Click. Then Amber's sorority sisters. Click, click, click. I was standing 6 feet away, bouquet in hand. I'd been asked to hold Amber's during the photos when the photographer said, I think we got everyone. Amber looked at me. For a brief moment, something flickered across her face. Not guilt. Not quite. More like recognition. The kind you feel when you notice a crack in the wall you've been walking past for years. But then my mother tugged her arm, and they turned to walk toward the cocktail hour. And the moment closed. At the reception, I sat at table 14. The Hendersons were polite. Derek's co-worker's girlfriend asked me how I knew the couple. I'm her sister, I said for the 3rd time. Oh, she said brightly. I didn't realize Amber had a sister. I smiled. Drank my wine. Let the sentence sit. During dinner, Amber took the microphone and thanked everyone who'd made the day possible. She thanked the venue staff. She thanked the DJ. She thanked her bridesmaids individually, each with a personalized anecdote that got laughs and tears. She thanked my mother for being her best friend. She thanked Derek's parents for raising the love of her life. She did not mention me. $51,000. And I wasn't worth a single sentence into a microphone. The music started. People danced. I helped the catering staff clear plates from my table because I needed something to do with my hands. A server looked at me and said, "You don't have to do that." "Mom," I said. "I know." But I kept stacking. Around 10 o'clock, I found my mother near the dessert table, feeding Amber's daughter. Wait. No. I found my mother near the bar, chatting with Aunt Carolyn about how beautifully everything had come together. I walked up and stood beside her. I didn't interrupt. I waited. When Carolyn excused herself, I said, "Mum." Not once. Not one time did anyone mention that I paid for this wedding. She looked at me the way she always did when I said something inconvenient. The slight tilt of the head, the soft exhale, the recalibration of patience. "Renée. Please. Not tonight. Then when? This is Amber's day. Everything doesn't have to be about you." That sentence. That same sentence. Weaponized softness, disguised as wisdom. She'd been saying some version of it my entire life. When I graduated, summa cum laude, and she spent the dinner talking about Amber's new apartment. When I got promoted, and she asked if I could lend Amber money for a car. When Grandma died, and she told me to hold it together for the family, while Amber sobbed publicly and received all the comfort. I didn't respond. I set my wine glass on the bar, walked across the dance floor, and stepped outside. The air smelled like crushed grapes and cold stone. I sat on the steps of the barn and opened my phone. I had a text from my 6-year-old daughter's babysitter. Chloe had drawn me a picture. A woman in a purple dress, holding a big heart. The babysitter had captioned it. She says, "This is Mommy saving the day again." I stared at that drawing for a long time. Then I thought about what Chloe would learn if she watched me keep paying for people who never said thank you. What she'd internalize if she saw her mother shrink on command. I fund someone else's spotlight and call it love. I opened the resort booking app. The honeymoon suite at Turks and Caicos. Paid in full, under my name. Check-in scheduled for Monday. I tapped Manage Reservation. Then I tapped Cancel. The screen asked if I was sure. I was. Cancellation confirmed. Refund to original payment method. Lumayuan. Subay. Then I opened the shared credit card. The one my mother had used for last-minute wedding expenses all week. Decorations. I hadn't approved. A spa day for the bridal party I hadn't attended. A gift basket for Derek's parents that cost more than my dress. I pressed freeze card. Status inactive. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel vengeance. I felt something quieter. A lock clicking into place. I went back inside. Found my purse under table 14. And said goodnight to the Hendersons. On my way out, Amber caught my arm near the exit. Her veil was off. Her mascara slightly smudged. She looked happy and flushed. "You're leaving already, we haven't even cut the cake." "I'm tired," I said. "It was a beautiful wedding." "Thanks." "Renée. Seriously. For everything." She said it quickly. The way people say, "bless you," after a sneeze reflexive. Weightless. Already forgotten before the sound fades. I drove back to my cottage, packed my bag, and booked a flight home for 6 the next morning. I didn't write a note. I didn't draft a speech. I just folded my burgundy dress, zipped my suitcase, and set my alarm. I was through airport security before any of them woke up. Somewhere over Virginia, the messages started. First, my mother. Where are you? We're doing brunch. Then Amber Renée. The hotel says the honeymoon suite was canceled. This isn't funny. Then my mother again. The card isn't working. What did you do then, Amber? All caps, Renée, answer your phone. Derek and I fly out tomorrow. I'll fix this. I read each message with the careful detachment of someone reading a weather report for a city they no longer lived in. Then I turned my phone to airplane mode, leaned my seat back, and closed my eyes. When I landed in Raleigh, there were 43 missed calls. I deleted the voicemails without listening. I knew what they'd say, the same script they'd been running my whole life. Repackaged with new urgency. You're being selfish. You're ruining everything. You're making this about you. But for the first time, I was making it about me. And it didn't feel selfish. It felt like breathing. After being underwater so long, you forgot what air tasted like. The first week back was strange. My apartment felt different. Not empty. Just clearer. Like someone had finally opened the windows after years of keeping them sealed. Chloe ran to me at pickup. And I held her so tight, she laughed and said, "Mommy, you're squishing me." I made us pancakes for dinner, because I could. Because no one was going to text me a Venmo request for the syrup. My mother called 14 times that first day. I didn't answer. On day 3, she left a voicemail. I accidentally played while washing dishes. "We didn't raise you to be spiteful. Renée." I turned off the faucet, dried my hands, and deleted it. On day 5, Amber sent a long message. It started with, "I can't believe you would do this to me on my wedding weekend," and ended with, "You've always been jealous of what I have." In between, not a single acknowledgement of the money. Not a single question about why. Just a monologue about how I'd embarrassed her and how Derek's parents thought our family was unstable. I read it once. I didn't reply. I archived the thread and made myself a cup of coffee. The truth is, I didn't cancel that honeymoon to punish Amber. I didn't freeze the card to watch them scramble. I did it because somewhere between the $22,000 deposit and the moment my own niece, a niece who didn't even exist yet, but who my Chloe would one day become to Amber, somewhere in that distance, I realized that my generosity had become their entitlement, and my silence had become their permission. A couple of weeks later, I found myself at a small bookshop near my office. The kind with creaky floors and handwritten shelf recommendations. I was browsing the travel section, something I never used to do, because all my vacation money went to someone else's plans, when I spotted a pamphlet for a solo hiking trip in the Smoky Mountains. 3 days. Small group. Guided trails. Campfire dinners. I signed up on the spot. Didn't text anyone. Didn't ask permission. Just typed my name. Entered my card. My card. For me, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Lightness. On my way out, I passed a mother and daughter sitting in the cafe corner. The little girl was reading aloud, stumbling over big words. And her mother was listening, like every syllable was a gift. She tucked a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear and whispered, "You're doing amazing, sweetheart." I watched them for a moment. Not with envy. Not with bitterness. With recognition. I knew what that kind of love looked like. My grandmother had given it to me, and I was going to pass it to Chloe, not by funding someone else's version of family, but by building one where she'd never have to wonder if she mattered. Some families hand you belonging like a birthright. Others make you audition for it every day of your life and still don't give you the part. I spent years learning lines for a role that was never written for me. And when I finally walked off that stage, nobody clapped. But that was okay. Because, for the first time, I wasn't performing. They say boundaries are walls. But sometimes, a boundary is just a door you finally decide to close, not out of anger. But because you've been standing in the doorway so long, you forgot you had a whole house behind you. If you've ever been the one who pays for everything and gets thanked for nothing, if you've ever smiled through a dinner where your name was the only one not spoken, if you've ever looked at your own family and realized they see right through you. Not because you're invisible, but because they chose not to look, then maybe this story found you for a reason. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Type 1 if this hit home. Or tell me your story, because I promise someone in this comment section needs to hear it as much as you needed to tell it. And if you want more stories like this, rough, real, and built from the truth, we're all too polite to say out loud, subscribe. I'll be right here with the next one. And I have a feeling it might feel a little too familiar.